Deeper dive into the Duranguito developments.
Joining us now live is Dr. Max Grossman, UTEP professor and historian leading the charge to save Duranguito. Dr. Grossman, thank you for coming in. Now, the court has lifted this injunction protecting the buildings, but you maintain that that doesn't mean that demolition can begin.
No, of course not. Demolition is impossible under these circumstances because the state must comply with two provisions of state law. On the one hand, they have to complete an archaeological survey. They've just applied to conduct an archaeological survey. It'll take a long time for them to be in full compliance. And number two, the Texas Historical Commission has yet to rule on our state antiquities landmark applications. These provisions are very clear under state law, the Texas Antiquities Code and the Texas Natural Resources Code. And it'll take quite a while before the city can even approach demolition.
All right, and the city is paying for a survey of that site. What do you think is underneath the neighborhood that could be so important?
Well, we don't need to speculate. We know it's exactly beneath the neighborhood. It's Ponce de Leon's ranch. Ponce de Leon established his ranch in 1827. It is the earliest settlement north of the Rio Grande in what is now El Paso, Texas. It is the very origins of our community. And the archaeological firm that the city of El Paso just hired, Moore Archaeological Consulting, just confirmed for us that, in their opinion, there's a very high probability of finding structural remains of that ranch below ground. The city's 1998 survey, conducted 20 years ago, came to the exact same conclusions. So everybody the city hires to look into the question agrees with us.
Dr. Grossman, you've been open about the fact that you have the backing of Houston businessman J.P. Bryan. He's one of the state's richest men. Is he still funding your legal battle? And if he is, how far is he willing to take this? And really, what's his interest in all of this?
J.P. Bryan has been coming to El Paso and the Southwest region for 30, 40 years. He has a deep and abiding interest in our cultural patrimony, in particular our architecture. In fact, your viewers know that he restored pretty much the entire town of Marathon, Texas since the 1970s, which is a huge success story. J.P. Bryan and I both share a passion for architecture and archaeology. And we believe that El Paso has a tremendous potential to develop a heritage tourism economy. We just need to catch up with San Antonio, Galveston, Austin, and other Texas cities that have really taken advantage of their architectural assets. And yes, J.P. Bryan is one of my primary backers. I'm a backer. I have 24 others. And we're absolutely committed to prevailing in the courts.
All right, if everything goes your way and the neighborhood is saved, I mean, what's the plan from there? A lot of these buildings were neglected for years, and some of them now even have holes in them. So what's the vision? And let me ask you, who's going to pay for it?
Well, let me remind you that every dilapidated building that is restored begins as a dilapidated building. Think of the Plaza Theater. Think of the Anson Mills building. Old buildings have potential, and it just requires some vision and, yes, some money to see those projects through. However, if we prevail, we expect that a local overlay and hopefully a National Register district will be established in Duranguito, freeing up the most generous tax credits in America to restore historic buildings, which will change the economic calculus of the neighborhood, and we feel will lead to a bonanza of historic preservation. We have little doubt about this because we've seen this happen pretty much everywhere else in Texas. In El Paso, we're pretty far behind. But we're expecting to see a livable, walkable neighborhood between the commercial area of Union Plaza and what is going to be a renovated South El Paso Street. And we have no doubt about the area's potential, its economic potential, its cultural potential. And I can tell you that we already have several investors who are willing to scoop up some of these buildings and restore them.
All right, Dr. Max Grossman, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you both.